Subscribe now or watch 10 Mark Polonia movies in a row.
Directed by Andrei Lapionek, probably pronounced that wrong. We are talking Night of Blood. This is a low budget 2026 slasher mystery movie. And this one has Corey Taylor involved, who of course is from Slipknot, and he actually has a role in the movie. I think he did the score, I think he was a producer as well. So what's the story of this one? So we have 6 contestants, 6 people who have applied to take part in this challenge. And the challenge is you have to stay in this haunted hotel. If you don't run away in the night, you know, you've basically got to stay the full until dawn. You'll basically get a share of $1 million, or whoever is left will share the $1 million. If there's only one person, they'll get the whole thing. If there's 6, they'll get it will go 6 ways. So we have these 6 people that turn up, and we all learn a little bit about them. And they've all got their sort of backstory and reasons and all the rest of it. And we meet the staff of this hotel. Yeah, there seems to be something afoot, shall we say, but it may not be supernatural. It might be more terrestrial. As it appears to be, there is a masked killer going around and offing victims, but there may well be sort of ghostly stuff going on. You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's talk about it. What works in Night of Blood? All right, this is a very low budget movie. You can tell. So you do have to kind of go into this movie knowing that you're going to be watching a low budget movie and not be expecting too much in regards to production value. But let me just say, I will say that the concept is a fun one. It is one we have seen a few times before, you know, this kind of premise of staying the night in a haunted house, and you know, if you do it, you'll kind of win some money and all the rest of it. So we've seen it a few times, but it's a good concept. And it's kind of like a fun premise because it's a good reason why these people aren't trying to leave, because they are trying to stick it out. And I also like the fact that these people go in and they're like, they think right away there's going to be like shenanigans going on. So they're checking for like cameras and things like this. They're not stupid. They know that there's going to be, or they're expecting to be tricks and sorts of actors kind of going around trying to scare them, to try and get them to go out of the kind of the property, so they ultimately lose. So I quite like the fact that we have our kind of characters clearly, you know, not being naive and sorts of things. So there's that, and there's also that adds an element of kind of paranoia to it, because people are kind of questioning if things are real and if things are staged, for example. Also, quite an interesting dynamic here is the players themselves kind of almost want to, or at least some of them, end up turning on each other because they want the biggest share of the prize money. Ultimately, they want it themselves. So they kind of try and, should we say, make the other players maybe lose the game. So again, it gives it an element where we have this sort of element where there is a killer or potentially supernatural stuff going on, but you've also got to watch out for your fellow contestants, who are, some of which are kind of scheming to get the others out and stuff like that. So there's a lot of kind of moving parts to this movie, which was kind of quite fun. And there's sort of like a mystery about, you know, what's going on with the past of this kind of this hotel, how much the people know, who's involved. So there's a fair amount of kind of story elements that are involved in this movie that I think could make it an interesting idea for a film. Does it succeed in its execution? It's a mixed bag, but there are a couple of reveals and kind of like fun little kind of things that happen in the movie. There's a couple of like okay kind of like VFX shots, I would say. There's not loads of VFX here, but there's a couple. There's a scene involving Corey Taylor actually, that you know, towards the end of the movie, which is really reasonably well done in regards to kind of like VFX and stuff, I gotta say. The acting is mixed. I think there are a couple of actors who do an okay job here. Some of which I think, you know, if they were in a movie where they were surrounded by, you know, consistent acting, I think they would, you know, the acting would probably be considered fairly good. But the acting is not all consistent, let me just say that, and that leads me to what doesn't work, is that the acting isn't consistent here. So, although I think there are some actors here that do an okay job for a kind of a B-movie horror film, there are others who struggle. There's others that seem not particularly kind of realistic, and others that sort of just seem somewhat kind of wooden and kind of silly and over the top at times. And some line delivery is, you know, it's quite bad. It's got a big sense. So the acting is a mixed bag. The execution as well, I've got to say, airs more on the negative than it does on the positive. I think the main problem for this movie is that, in a way, it's sort of a little bit convoluted, because you're not really sure what's meant to be going on, because they've layered in so many story ideas into it in a way that never really feel like they're fully fleshed out. And this includes a lot of the kind of the backstories and the kind of the relationships between our contestants, all of whom we learn a little bit about, and you know, they each have their own sort of motivations, and some of which have pre-existing kind of links to the outside world or to each other in some cases. And I just think sometimes it sort of struggles to kind of balance all of this and ends up becoming a little bit of a convoluted movie in many ways. You're not really sure if there's meant to be kind of supernatural stuff going on, or if it is kind of like more down to a terrestrial threat and things like this. There are things that seem to be happening, and you're thinking, I'm not quite sure why that's happening. We have a slasher, but it's incredibly obvious who it is because you can tell by the body shape. So, you know, it's not exactly sort of a big reveal when that kind of happens. So, you know, the whole point of the movie is leading up to this kind of reveal of this like whodunit type thing, but it's fairly obvious, like, because you can kind of tell by the body shape. I mean, at least they, I suppose, have got the actor playing it who is, you know, was playing the kind of the non-killer character, I guess, but it makes it pretty obvious, sadly. And I think the movie just gets a little bit. As I say, it gets bogged down, and it's a little bit of it's a mythology which isn't particularly kind of well handled. It seems like it's relatively quickly shot. Things just seem like they've been shot particularly quickly. It certainly doesn't look like it's like this, like, you know, a hotel which could afford to give away $1 million. Someone actually asks what the actual owners of the hotel get out of this, and that was a fair question, because I didn't really feel like that was really properly answered. And what do they get out of it? It doesn't really kind of, it's not like there's some billionaire that just is doing it for their own amusement. It just seems like, why are they doing it? And as such, the movie just kind of feels like half-baked. It has some fun elements in it. I don't think it's a particularly cohesive movie, I have to say, and just feels like it's kind of half done. It needed a bit more time, and a little bit more budget, and a little bit more consideration about some of the kind of the plot elements. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. What were your thoughts if you've seen it? Please do leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.
Geek Legion of Doom tastes delicious.